Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast in the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now on to this week's episode. My guest today is absolutely phenomenal. I teased you a little bit last week that I was going to have somebody special on this week that's going to give you some real practical tools around the power of self-reflection that we talked about for the past 3 weeks. And I'm really excited to talk to him. But before we jump in, let me just remind you that the divorce quiz is still up at the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Takes a quick 10 minutes, going to help you gauge where you're at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it. And then it'll give you a chance to chat with me and just see kind of where you're doing well and where you might need a little bit of help. And the second is the most exciting, and our app is finally, this has been such a labor of love, in the app stores. So if you go to the website and click on Get the App, you can download it. Everything right now is wide open and free. All the content is free. So get it now and dig into some of this stuff. There's going to be some great resources and tools. You can also go to thedivorcedadvocateapp.com and download it there. So check it out. Pause right now, go download it, and then come back and listen to my next guest, who is the founder and CEO of Intermatrix Systems. Intermatrix Systems is a personal mastery training system for high achievers. And for more than 20 years, IMS has delivered a proprietary methodology that rewires, trains, and aligns the nervous system, emotions, and thought strategies to create real-life results. He and IMS have worked with more than 80,000 individuals from around the world through both live and online training programs, as well as one-on-one coaching. Clients include Boeing, IBM, Dell, Google, Panda Express, Coca-Cola, and the World Health Organization. He is the author of The Intermatrix, Leveraging the Art and Science of Personal Mastery to Create Real-Life Results. Please welcome Joey Klein.
Hey, hey, man, it's so good to be here. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, appreciate you being on the show. I am unbelievably excited to talk to you because like we were talking about just before, I just finished 12 weeks with in the Intermatrix system in one of your Power Series modules, and I just want to tell everybody, I am not getting paid to say any of what I'm going to say right now. I had such an amazing experience with this. I've been doing personal development for decades, and this is easily one of the top 3 best experiences that I have. And when I say that in experience, I mean the results that I got immediately in working through the 12 weeks. So what you've put together is amazing, and that's why I wanted to have you on, and I'm so excited to talk about this. So what will you just start talking and telling the audience a little bit about yourself and why you got into developing Intermatrix system?
Sure thing. Absolutely. So, for me, it was actually kind of an accident. I know today it's very popular. People want to, be a coach or a consultant or, help people out, things like that. I never had that in my mind. Matter of fact, I remember being in high school and going into like college a little bit and thinking like there are a few things I'll never want to do. I never want to speak in public. I don't want to public speak. I never write a book, and I don't want to act. Right. So 2 of those things are literally what I do for a living now. And so for me, it was really just like, probably like a lot of us come to this work. I was, I was in a lot of pain and, I was in my early adulthood, and I was really out of control. And I remember like this moment hit me after a 3-day party binger. And I thought, if I keep living the way I am, like I'm not going to be alive in a year. Like the kind of things I was up to were pretty extreme. And I was like, I'm here for something more. Like I'm here to live for something more. And I met a mentor of mine, who I ended up living with in Boulder, Colorado. And I ended up actually kind of diving into a very unconventional education. I spent a lot of time in India meditating in temples, in a very traditional setting, right? You wake up at 5 a.m., you meditate for hours, do chores, meditate some more, do chores, do more meditation, or what I think of as internal training now. Study Taoist meditation and so on and so forth. So that was really my beginning, was these like ancient wisdom traditions, but really diving in deep, like not on the surface at all, not reading books, but like going to these different countries and different parts of the world and really living it. Because I remember when I was a kid, I watched Kung Fu Legend Continues, back in the 80s. And I was like, spiritual stuff happens on mountains and that's where you find yourself, right? So this is kind of what really started my journey. But I actually found my answers. I found some pretty amazing things. And I ended up meeting a mentor in Los Angeles, Dr. Lou, and I helped her daughter out when I was coaching her a little bit and training her. And she just happened to be the daughter to a world-renowned, psychologist who was connected to a lot of high-profile clients, a lot of actors, actresses, CEOs, of Fortune 100, 500 companies, entrepreneurs, things of this nature. And she saw what I did for her daughter, who had a brain injury and had some things going on, and I was able to do for her daughter what the best therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists couldn't do. In a relatively short period of time, like maybe 4 to 6 months. So she flew me out to LA. We got to know each other a little bit. And she said, listen, I want you to move out here. I will basically train you inside of psychology. And I want you to teach me this internal training stuff that you're doing that clearly works. And so I was like, great, sounds like a good trade. At that time, I had no idea she was going to refer me her toughest clients, right? That's kind of how I got started, was she referred me her peeps that, she worked with a decade or 2 decades that she wasn't getting any more results with. And I would work with these guys 2-3 sessions, and we would turn it around, right? I had to create very fast change. I had to get results because I was 22 at the time. And, your 22-year-old shows up at your door, you've got about 15 minutes to prove yourself, and they're kicking you out. Right. So that's really where I got my start. And, fast forward to today, I teach 40 weekend programs a year, all over the world. I've taught throughout Japan and Europe, the United States. As you said earlier, about 80,000 people have gone through our programs and our trainings. And it really has just all taken a life on its own. And it really just started with helping one person out. And then a referral happened. And then I helped another person, got a result, and then a referral happened. Before I knew it, I have a full practice of about 80, 90 people that I worked with one-on-one. And they actually requested that I start teaching programs and seminars because I had a waiting list. People couldn't get access to me. So I started doing like workshops and seminars just to give people access. That took off. And then same thing. Eventually people were like, dude, like I want to, my friend or my family member in this country or that country needs access, or so-and-so can't afford to come see you in person with the, the airfare and the flights and all the things. Like, will you write a book to just, give people access? Like love to be able to give a book out. And I was like, man, I don't want to write a book, so then, yeah, exactly. So I was like, that was a 5-year process because I really wanted it to actually be a transformational tool, not just, a marketing thing. And so then I wrote a book, right? So it really was just like one step after another, and it all just kind of took on a life of its own. And I've done it for over 2 decades now.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm not the only one that had an amazing transformational experience with it. It is truly amazing. And so we talk a lot about on the show about dealing with emotions, going through emotions, processing feelings. Everybody, all the men who are listening right now are dads, divorced or divorcing, that really care, and that's why they're tuning in to try to figure out and understand how to get through this. So tell us a little bit about, and so that's why we talked about the power of self-reflection over the past 3 weeks, because divorce is a time where it is chaotic. It breaks you open, if you will, and brings up all kinds of different things. And it can really be an opportunity, if you will take it, to deal with some of this stuff, to use it as a transformational opportunity and an experience. But that takes some specific tools. And so Inner Matrix, I see with my experience is something that could definitely help them in this process. Tell us about the system, and then let's maybe talk about some specifics on some of the different series that you offer.
Yeah, of course. So if I were to sum it up as succinctly as I can, the entire system really focuses on three key aspects: training, aligning, and rewiring emotions, thought strategies, and essentially our nervous system. And if we look at any life transition, and actually, a lot of individuals find inner matrix systems, because they are going through a divorce or a separation or a challenging time in life. Like that actually has become a sweet spot for me in terms of helping people out, because when we're most sort of excited to, or most willing, I should say,
Right.
to grow and to change is when things aren't going so well, right? When we hit the bumps in the road, so to speak. And literally, no matter whether it's people going through a separation, or I'm sitting down with an entrepreneur of a big company, at the end of the day, that person is getting their current results because of the emotions that are going on, often at an unconscious level that we're not even, oftentimes, connected to. And those emotions are driving our perception of reality, the thoughts that we think, the beliefs that we hold, etc. And then that, in a very real way, motivates every choice, decision, and action that we take, from, the meal that we eat to, are we going to be happy today? Are we going to be sad today? Are we going to say something constructive or destructive, and so on and so forth? And so if you, get clear about the result, the outcome that you want to aspire to, you can really, build a formula of the emotions, the thought strategies, and how you need to influence the nervous system, to basically get yourself motivated to execute on the choices, decisions, and actions consistently over time that will render the outcome that we're looking to create. And so very simply, it's like, hey, we need to stop doing what we're doing that's gotten the results that we don't want. And we need to start doing the things that are essentially going to produce the results that we do want. And we all kind of know that objectively, like that. We know that practically. And sometimes we can even see the things that we're doing that are not rendering a result, but yet we can't get ourselves to stop doing the stuff that's not producing results we want. And it can be very challenging to motivate ourselves, to get ourselves to do the things that will produce the result if we know what those are. And so basically that's what we look at training at Inner Matrix Systems, is the inner game to performance, right? And that's what I spend my lifetime, basically looking at, how do we do that as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Right. And you said training, aligning, and what was the third one?
Yeah, training, aligning, and rewiring emotions, thought strategies, and the nervous system. And I think there's some good information out there about the mind, and how to think in a dynamic way. What I find that we do really unique is we train emotion. We don't just talk about emotional intelligence or kind of the benefit of that. We really train it. And there's such an imperative nervous system component to that. That people don't often understand needs to happen. But when you get what needs to happen, the things that we need to execute on are not hard to do. You just need to know what they are. And with a little bit of practice, you can really create some accelerated results.
Right. Yeah, I think so two things. The first was that struck me is that, and this seems to be a business mantra that we don't utilize in our personal life, that you just said, if you're not getting the results that you wanted, which most of the men listening now they're forced into a result, right? It's right. A divorce, whether they chose it themselves or it was, forced upon them. So it's just happening. So they have to deal with it. We have to deal with it because it's happening. But oftentimes, if we're not getting the results in business, we're not getting results, we start to look at what are we doing is different. We don't do that all the time in our personal lives. We don't say, oh, well, my relationship isn't well. Let me step this back, and what could it be? Oh, it's emotions. Emotions are coming up, or I got to deal with emotions. I got to train these emotions. I got to do something. That's not, something that I never learned that growing up. I don't know if you ever learned that growing up. That's just something that's not talked about, and which is why we did the power of self-reflection. Self-reflection is really, really beneficial.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does, there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com or give me a call directly at 720-255-1021.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right on track with that. As I often say to people, I think when I think back to school and education, I learned math and I learned how to read and I learned English and I memorized a bunch of, stuff about history and so on and so forth. And I didn't learn, right? Nobody taught me the most important things. What are feelings? What are emotions? What role do they play in our life? What do you do with them? How do you cultivate them? Why are they meaningful? And like we all have these thoughts going on in our mind. We think all day, every day. And that really does motivate everything we do. And yet nobody taught me about how does the mind work? Like, why does the mind think? How do you construct beliefs? Why is that important? How do you focus the mind? And so on and so forth. And so the things that we really need the most education about as it pertains to living a fulfilled life and truly creating the results and outcomes that we want, not just in business, but happy relationships, right? Happy family, health and vitality, and so on and so forth. Like, these are the things that often go unnamed, and there's no education about it. And oftentimes when you do go seek stuff out inside of traditional methods, if you find the things that I found, a lot of the stuff actually ended up being more destructive than constructive. And I kind of had to like wade through all that kind of stuff. Right. And for me, I'm a curious dude. Right. And I'm like, I remember my family was challenging growing up. Right. Like my parents divorced, that definitely happened. And, my little sister and I did everything we could to kind of be out of the house because it was such an uncomfortable place to be. And so I get curious. I'm like, what makes a family work? Right. So I've spent, decades going like, what makes relationships work? What makes families work? And then what are the things that have it break down? And, I have this unique kind of perspective because I've gotten to interact with tens of thousands of people over the years, and thousands of them one-on-one in the trenches, where it's like, hey, what's your challenge? What's going on? What results you want to get? And having to get those results with people. And, basically going into research and going like, hey, what are these 1,000 people doing that has their relationship thrive? And they're all doing similar stuff. And then it's like, well, what are these individuals doing that are having relationships break down and having it really be a challenge and constant struggle? And they're all doing similar things as well. And when you kind of get this big picture, forest from the trees kind of perspective that I kind of get to see every day, you really realize like, oh, these people are doing similar things that are causing, dynamic and vibrant relationships, or health, or whatever it might be in life. And these individuals are doing something very different that's causing, pain and suffering essentially. And it really is, there's a formula, all of it, right? There's a formula to vibrant relationships. There's a formula to health and vitality. There's a formula to wealth. And it's easy if you know the formula, and it's really hard if you don't.
Exactly. Well, and that's what's beautiful about Intermatrix, and whatever you spend on it, there's going to be an infinite, like, way more benefit that you're going to get from it, because it applies to every area of your life, just not the relationships. The men listening right now, it's going to help your relationships for sure, but it's going to help your business. It's going to help everything, because what you said, which it affects all of your life, and it helps you with create a fulfilled life, because it's all about that base emotion. And that is what drives all of it. So let's take it from there a little bit and talk a little bit about the training, aligning, and rewiring of the emotions through this process. And obviously, we've got a set amount of time, and I'm sure you can, you're doing seminars every weekend about this, so you can get if you're listening, it's intermatrix.com.
Theintermatrix.com. People can grab like my book for $10. There's a ton of like giveaway trainings that people can engage in there. That's a great place to start the work. Or intermatrixsystems.com. You can check out all our programs.
Okay, so I just want people to not worry that we're going to be talking about so much stuff, and we're never going to be able to get into all of it. I mean, unless you want to do a series, and then I'll just be your host. We just keep talking about it all the time. But anyway, we can negotiate that offline. But let's talk a little about that.
Yeah, of course. I think if we look at relationship as an example, and we make it, I like to make things very simple because then we can apply them. If we look at the things that break down relationship, it always everything starts with emotion. It really does. And, it's as simple as like, hey, I'm frustrated with my significant other. And as a one-time event, getting frustrated and maybe saying some critical things about our significant other, that's not going to be a big deal, right? Like we forgive anything, just about anything once. This I've learned training people, like people that they care about, they will forgive them for just about anything once or twice, right? But the thing that breaks down a relationship is, let's say we're frustrated or we're overwhelmed with work, and we bring that home. And we can't kind of, keep it at the door, or there's something we are frustrated about in our relationship, or something that our significant other does or our ex is doing. And, we feel frustrated in that moment, or we feel annoyed, or we feel, taken for granted, or whatever it might be. Well, if we look at what follows that, we tend to be critical, right? We say critical things about our partner, and it often doesn't start out like big stuff, right? It's not like hateful things. A lot of times it's like little things, like, hey, like, can't you keep the house a little bit cleaner? Or, you used to dress up all the time. Now you don't dress up anymore. And, we're just kind of like these little criticisms that end up becoming perpetual, right? They end up being pervasive in the relationship. And if we really look at, well, where does that start? We're annoyed, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden that drives the things that we're doing in the relationship. And again, as a one-time event, this stuff isn't a big deal. But if it ends up becoming our way of being in that sneaky fashion that it does, and then all of a sudden that's the way we're interacting with the person in front of us, all of a sudden, months of that or years of that ends up becoming the end of the relationship. And, as I say to people, like, if you think about when you first meet somebody, right, when you're in love and you're super excited about them, there's different emotions there. Right? You're excited and there's passion and there's joy, and you feel a sense of freedom and empowerment. And it's like, you look at the other person when that emotional lens is there, and you see all these wonderful things about them. You're so lucky to have them, and you're so grateful that they, take the time to call you or send you a text. And then later on that becomes like, God, why are they texting me again? They're so annoying. Right. And so it's like, if we look at what changes, it often is an emotional shift. And all of a sudden, instead of being grateful for the person and appreciative of who they are and all the little things they do, and then like when they do annoying things, we just kind of overlook it, or we even call it cute, right? Like when we're in that love phase, right? It's like, oh, look how cute they are. Like that's so adorable that they, leave the little mess on the counter or whatever it is. And it just doesn't bother us because our emotional state is different. And the relationship tends to thrive there. We want to see more of each other. We get together, we move in, and things are going really well. If you look at any relationship that ends up not working out, and rewind the tape if you know how to look, and you can pinpoint it to where an emotional shift happened, which then motivated different ways of thinking and relating to the other person, and then different actions began, and then we didn't catch it. And it just continued to compound over time, and then produces one result or the other, right? The end of a relationship, or a dynamic, vibrant relationship that thrives over time. And if we really look at where does this behavior come from, you can always isolate it down to the feeling, the emotion first, and then the thoughts occur. Then it shows up in our nervous system. We feel something, then we say stuff, then we do things, and then it takes on a life of its own over time.
Okay. So let me ask you though, how, after so many years together, how do you do that? How do you identify that after, what you just described, which is I would call an unhealthy dynamic that you've created just because you've maybe repressed it, or you haven't talked about it, or you just ignored it, and then just becomes commonplace. How do you do that? How do you identify that? Is there a process?
Yeah, I think, in my mind, it always starts with ownership. Right. Okay. Because the tendency that we have, and this isn't like, one person over the other, without training, I think it's a human tendency, to sort of what I think of as defer accountability, right? Blame blame the other people in our life for whatever's going on, or blame the world, for what's going on.
That seems to be a societal thing right now, right? Don't look internally, look externally. It's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, exactly. Economy's doing this, or that's happening, or this is happening, right? It's like, it's kind of what we do instinctually almost, right? And so step one is really ownership, right? Which is, deferring accountability. I think we do this in 3 ways, right? We blame, people in our life. We blame ourselves. We blame the world at large for the things that are happening to us. The second thing I think we do when we defer is we feel sorry for ourselves, essentially, right? We just kind of pout, right? We all have that tendency where we can just kind of feel bad for where we are and what's happening to us, and kind of feel sorry for ourselves a bit. And then the third way I see that we defer accountability is like through no belief, right? Just not believing that things are possible. All of a sudden, just opting out to possibility because we just write it off for ourselves. We say, it's not going to happen for me. It's for other people. It's too late. There's too much water under the bridge, or like whatever we say, right? So for me, step one really is just ownership. Hey, I'm not going to defer responsibility anymore, right? And what I mean by that is, like, we're all going to answer to our way of being in life. Sometimes we answer to things and we love what we answer to, and they're really great. And sometimes, our choices, our decisions, our actions, the things we do have us answer to some stuff that's kind of painful and we don't like to see it. But at the end of the day, we're the center of our life. We're the core of our life, and we've created all of it. And so if we can, have the courage, because it really does take courage to stop and first look around, and go, hey, I created this. This is a byproduct of me and nobody else. That gives us the ability to see some stuff that we're not going to catch or see any other way. So that's kind of step one, right? It's on me. I'm accountable. I'm responsible. Like, this is me. What is my role in it? And I think if we take that approach, it's going to give us the ability to see some stuff that we can really, sort of highlight and make a difference. Right. And
so that's the self-reflection part that we've been talking about after the past 3 weeks, right? Just paying attention. Takes 2 to create a dynamic. A dynamic doesn't happen with one person. There's 2 people that do it. So no matter what, and oftentimes we talk about a dynamic, maybe a codependent dynamic or a narcissistic dynamic or something like that. There's always a dynamic, and everybody is always bringing something to that. Right.
Yeah. I totally agree. 100%, and for me, I always like to focus on myself, because I can control myself, right? I can influence myself. Anybody who's ever been in a romantic relationship knows, like, you can't control the other person. And the more you may want to, or the more you try, the worse that goes. Right.
Right.
But I can always look at the things I'm doing and change that right away. And so, for me, I always look at, what are the things that I'm up to that are producing the outcome I want? What are the things that I'm up to that are not producing, the outcomes that I want to achieve? And what I find is that you have to start with the proper context. And the only way to have context is you have to name what you want first. And so for me, like, fixing a relationship or changing things doesn't start with what's wrong. It starts with, well, what does right look like? Right? What does the vision of relationship that I want to have, like, what is that vision for relationship? Right? When I work with people, when they're in a challenge in relationship, right, I always say to them first, what is the relationship you want? Pretend you're not with the person you're with for a minute, and you were to just diagram out or name, what you want in a romantic relationship. What does that look like? And I'll tell you, almost nobody can tell me what that would be for them initially. And these are people who are married for 10 years or 2 decades or 5 years or 3 years, or, they're just in a new relationship, right? Or sometimes people, divorce, right? And after the relationship, when I say to them, well, what would the relationship be that you would have wanted to have? They have to think about it a little bit. Right. So I think it really starts with first asking the question, what is the relationship that I want to aspire to? And the key word there is I. And initially, don't put it on the other person to have to be responsible for their side at all. Start with, what is it that I want? And then that gives us the context to now start to pay attention in a different way, because then when we start to look at our way of being in the relationship, you're gonna have this thing you can measure against now. And if what you want is a fulfilling relationship and connection, and you want to have fun with your partner, and you want to live in affluence, and you want to travel, and you want to, have a harmonious family, like, if you're clear on these things you want, And then you get very micro about it and you stop and you go, hey, what am I feeling right now? Feeling agitated, feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling annoyed. And then you pay attention and you go, well, what's the thing I'm thinking about saying or doing, toward this other person that I care about. And it's like, hey, I'm going to be critical of them, right? I'm about to lose my temper. I'm about to put them down. And if you can have the wherewithal to stop and go, hey, will that behavior in this moment right now perpetuate this vision I say I want for a relationship? Yes or no? That's where the magic happens, because now we can start to really pay attention real time to the things that we're doing and really understand they're either going to produce the outcome that we say we want, or we're about to basically do something that's not going to produce that outcome. And what I find is that 9 of 10, if we can start adjusting our way of being in a relationship like that in a very real practical way relative to what we're wanting to create, and we can start just making those subtle but meaningful adjustments, especially when they compound over time, 9 of 10 times, you don't have to get your partner or your significant other to change or do anything different. They'll start to respond to your different way of being. And then the relationship that we have a vision for unfolds, and it does happen. And then, 1 of 10, it doesn't work out. And you know what? Maybe that needed a transition, and that relationship wasn't the one for us. And it probably needed to conclude so that we can meet the person who wants to show up for the thing that we want for ourselves.
To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.